What's going on, everyone? It's Hacks. Gonna do a quick tier list video for January 2023. I know you all might be wondering why this tier list video is so close to my last one, which I did just 4 months ago in September 2022. And it's because I just like to stay updated on this subject. Whenever my tier list changes, which is kind of rare, honestly, I kind of feel as though recently I've been getting pretty close to like what the final tier list would actually look like. But whenever I feel as though I have made a change to my tier list, from here on out I'll probably make a video to let you all know and provide the reasoning for that change. I've been making these tier lists since like 2014, 2015, so I just wanted to make a new one to keep people updated on the differences that recently I recently came around to as compared to the previous tier list video that I published 4 months ago. So, as you can see at the bottom, these are the same 12 characters from my previous tier list. I don't foresee this list of 12 ever changing. I think, characters like DK, Link, the other Mario brothers, Mewtwo, Ganondorf are distinctly in a tier below these characters, and those characters and below really just will never ever have a chance of winning a major tournament. So I only like to rank these 12 characters. Without further ado, there are going to be 4 tiers this time around: S, A, B, and C. And so let's go ahead with Fox as number 1. I don't think anyone's too surprised to see that I've got Fox in this position. And Marth at number 2, and Falco at number 3. Now, as I've said in many of my previous tier list videos, Fox at number 1 is a lock for the rest of eternity, but Marth and Falco as the second and third best characters in the game is probably always going to be the closest call on the tier list. I think Falco does end up being the better character in like a super theoretical endgame, which we are nowhere near close to, and may never reach, because the best Falco player by far in Mango, I think, doesn't really apply some of the strategies that I'm thinking of when I think of like a super optimized Falco. Maybe it could happen, maybe down the road, within the next few years it could happen, but like Mango's seeing so much success with Falco the way that he currently already plays him. I'm talking about things like perfecting his ledge game. A lot of people criticize Mango's ledge game despite how good he is. They'll say he doesn't have the best ledge game. That's one example. Just like understanding the physics of the game a little better. I think if you do these things, then Falco's number 2. Like, if you do these things and you play Falco like Mango, then I think he's number 2. But that is, I think we're still a ways away from seeing that. And so I just don't think Falco can go above Marth right now, because this tier, the S tier, these are basically the characters. These are the only characters in the game who you could argue don't lose matchups. But Fox and Marth tend to be oppressive into the other characters, whereas Falco kind of goes even with a lot of them. The argument for Falco being above Marth would be if his matchups into, say, like Captain Falcon and Sheik were better than Marth's by enough that this was justified. But right now, I think the fact that Marth is broken into like a lot of characters like Icy's, Jigs, Peach, I think you've got to give him the second place spot. So I'll go with this for now. Now, for the 4th position, I've got Sheik, and I think that these 4 characters in the game are undeniably the best. I would be shocked if there ever came a time where these were not the 4 best characters in the game. I think the lock-ins here are Fox at rank 1 and Sheik at rank 4. And then these two, that's the toss-up. I think a lot of people agree with that. I'm definitely of that opinion. The toss-up is between Marth and Falco, but Sheik is at number 4, and I'm putting Sheik a tier below these other 3 this time around, because I think S tier has to be reserved for the characters who you could argue don't lose matchups. And Sheik absolutely does lose matchups. She loses to Ice Climbers and Jigglypuff. She also loses to Fox. So while Sheik has an incredibly strong matchup spread, she is distinctly the first character down the tier list who does have losing matchups. Now, the next two characters that are going to be ranked in some order are Jigglypuff and Captain Falcon. And here's where things get interesting. Because I think the conclusion that I've come around to is actually that if you're playing on UCF, like the current standard version that the Melee community plays on, UCF, that Jigglypuff is number 5. But I think if you use 1.03, which is my recommended game version with every faulty mechanic in the game fixed, that Jigglypuff is number 6. And the reason for that distinction is because fixing dashback out of crouch helps Captain Falcon so much. And this is something that I've talked about in some of my other YouTube videos, where UCF is arbitrary in the sense that it only fixes regular dashback. So fixing regular dashback, I'll give you an example of a character who benefits hugely from that, is actually Marth. Marth benefits a lot from specifically dashback being fixed, but not dashback out of crouch. Now, Captain Falcon benefited a lot from dashback being fixed, but he also benefits a lot from dashback out of crouch being fixed. The character who benefit the most from dashback out of crouch being fixed are Sheik and Falcon. So basically, he's the only one from these three that I just talked about, Marth, Sheik, and Falcon. He's the only one who benefits hugely from both of the faulty dash mechanics being fixed, because you have Marth as a big beneficiary of dashback being fixed, which it currently is on UCF. Sheik as a big beneficiary of dashback out of crouch being fixed, but Captain Falcon being a big beneficiary of both of them being fixed, because he has a bad, I believe, 6-frame failed dashback on vanilla. So UCF was great for him, but then 1.03 is also great for him because he benefits hugely from dashback out of crouch. So I think if we're talking UCF, then I would give it to Jigs for the number 5 position. But if we're talking 1.03, then my prediction is that this is what it will be. And I like to go by 1.03 because I actually view that as the true game version. I think UCF is arbitrary. I think certain mechanics weren't fixed just because they weren't in demand. And now the game is coming around to the need to fix every mechanic. And so Captain Falcon's going to benefit from that. So this is what I would have the rankings as, with every faulty mechanic fixed. Now, aside from the slight differences in the tier categories, because you see there is a difference already from the previous list that I did. Previous list I had it like this. I had Sheik and Falcon in the same tier as Fox, Marth, and Falco. I think that was a little bit of a mistake. I do think Fox, Marth, and Falco are the 3 characters who don't lose matchups, and so they've got to be in their own tier. We're in the tier with characters that for certain lose matchups, but they're still great. They can solo win tournaments, and that's where the only order difference on my entire tier list right now is going to come into play, and that is Yoshi at number 7. Yoshi at number 7 is a big part of the reason that I'm making a new tier list video. Now, what incited this discussion was a lot of the talk surrounding Amsa's recent success. He himself said, I'm pretty sure he himself said that Yoshi's above Peach. A lot of people thought about it on Twitter, and it seems that a decent amount of them agreed. Now, I actually happen to agree with this. I thought about it as well, and the way that I see it is that the A tier, these are characters who can, by all means, solo win tournaments. I think that Yoshi's ability to solo win a tournament is light years better than Peach's. Peach is going to go in the next tier, so believe it or not, I don't just have Yoshi above Peach, but I also have Peach 1 tier below. And the reason for that is because Peach is truly oppressed by Fox, and Marth. Yoshi is oppressed by Fox, but he holds his own well against Marth. Peach also has the borderline unwinnable Jigs matchup. Not unwinnable, but maybe 80-20 in Jigs' favor. Whereas Yoshi against Jigs is perfectly fine. Seems pretty 50-50-ish to me. Or maybe slight loss for Yoshi. But those things, most notably the Jigs matchup, severely compromises Peach's ability to solo win a tournament. You would almost have to avoid Hungry Box to solo win a tournament with Peach. And so I think that not only on a theoretical level, but also on a practical level, everything is lining up with Yoshi actually being a better character than Peach, at least for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and put Yoshi in the A tier, and the A tier is, like I said, going to be the second best. These are the second best characters for solo winning an event, and I think Yoshi makes the cut, whereas Peach does not, because when I look at Peach's spread, it is pretty terrible. She's a character who's broken into basically everyone on the tier list below her, but surprisingly oppressed by almost everyone above her. And people historically used to put her here for that, but now the idea that she's actually worse than Yoshi is coming up, and I do believe it's true. So Peach will get the number 8 spot now, which is, I think, the worst I've ever placed her on a tier list. This is the worst I've ever placed Peach on a tier list, but I actually think that's where she lands herself as of right now. Next, we've got Ice Climbers. This kind of just goes in order from here. Ice Climbers, let's see, they beat Sheik, so that's great. And very little else is great about them. Almost exclusive. They have almost exclusively losing matchups to everyone above them. And so it's kind of like Peach, where it's like another roadblock character, really good into almost anyone below them, but just not a top pick for winning an event. Not a second tier pick for winning an event either. I think this character is undeniably in the third tier, which is fairly disadvantaged, but winning is still possible. And then that tier is going to round out with Pikachu. Pikachu is almost completely roadblocked by 3 characters, Ices, Peach, and Jigs. We're seeing Axe concede to this now with a secondary Fox pick. So he's the most roadblocked in the sense that he might have potentially 3 characters that force you to not play him, which is horrible. But what's randomly good about Pikachu is that he's pretty good into the S tier. He's like an anti-meta character, holds his own well against these top 3, also holds his own well against Captain Falcon. So he cannot be in the C tier. He can't be in the C tier because he holds his own really well against the S tier for a character who gets this low of a placement. Also holds his own well against this character. So he's going to be in the third tier. I do think he's the worst character that you can win a major with. It would require extreme bracket luck, but if we're assuming that characters like Fox, Marth, and Falco are more common than some of these other characters, then it could still happen. But I do think a secondary Fox, if you're a Pikachu player, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to have one. And we're seeing the best Pikachu in the world abide by that strategy as of recently. Now, going into the C tier, we've got these 2. There's no way you're winning a major with these 2, but they're better than the unviable characters. Samus and Luigi are, I think, distinctly better than the rest of the cast. The rest of the cast is borderline unplayable at the top level, whereas these 2 are not. And so we'll give them a C tier placement. No chance at all that one of these 2 characters wins a major in the remainder of Melee's lifespan. I know that's harsh, but I think it's just the truth. And so they're still playable. Plenty of people find success with them, but I think it's well understood that their matchup spreads are far too bleak to win a major event. they're still good characters, so they do make the cut. So, with that being said, that rounds out my January 2023 tier list. The main differences from the previous tier list are the fact that I did this in 4 tiers rather than 3, because I felt as though the characters that can truly win an event should actually be grouped into 3 tiers, not 2 like I did last time. I think this is the god tier, this is the high tier, and then this is the mid tier. And people might be surprised to find that Peach is mid tier because she feels so broken on like a frame data level, but she just doesn't fare well into a lot of these top tiers. And I think the god awful Jigglypuff matchup actually solidifies her as being in the 3rd tier of characters you could play if your goal is to win a major event. And right now the results are lining up with that. Results are lining up with Yoshi being the worst, let's say the weakest choice, who's still completely in the running for winning a major. Right now the results line up with that. We're seeing that 7 characters are pretty good for winning a major. I think these 3 are still great, but they're not as great, and then these 2 will never do it. That's my tier list. Let me know what you all think in the comments section, and stay tuned for more Melee content.